That's one of the best podcasts ever. Ever. Top 5 dead or alive.
Welcome to Caviar. I'm your host, Tony, in the Ministry of Silly Talks, as usual, with Graham in the building.
What's happening, people?
Another great day of podcasting.
My
and
goodness.
Let me tell you, if you haven't subscribed to the One Graham Army podcast, do so immediately. And if you haven't subscribed to Caviar, do that as well, because
why are you listening to these things?
Why? We tell you this week in and week out, and if you haven't done it already, what do we have to do to make you understand? Pretty soon, we're going to just come to you. We talked about this last episode.
Yeah, we're coming to your house.
We're coming to you.
We're going to just come. Yeah. Oh, you don't want to subscribe? Oh,
That's
but
cool.
You keep listening?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then we're going to set up in your bedroom while you're asleep
we're gonna have
with your significant other.
Now we're going to have episodes in your house, and then you're going to have to deal with us. You can't avoid us any longer.
Welcome to involuntary subscription, bitch.
Right.
That's what I say.
And then this what is going to happen?
Would to be down at the foot of your bed, and you're going to be like, oh my God, when will this end? And we'll do an episode of the One Graham Army, and you'll be like, oh, thank God, I apologize for
it's
not
over.
subscribing. And I'm like, oh, you should have fucking paid attention.
Right. Exactly.
And now
it's a 1-2 punch.
Yep,
But yeah,
you get 2 podcasts.
Yeah, listen, we're going to continue.
For the price of none, fucking subscribe.
Right, yeah, absolutely free. We don't ask you for anything but a subscription, which is free. So, okay, all right.
You don't want to fucking sprain your thumbs, I guess.
All right.
Jesus.
We're gonna continue with season 3. I know last week we had a kind of getting our feet back into the water type episode, getting back into the speed of things, which was amazing. And now we're back at it. We had a great episode of the One Graham Army,
and it turns out we did fine too.
Yeah, I know, right?
Why did we gotta stop second guessing ourselves?
I know.
I'm willing to admit that I don't know anything, but we're making good podcasts.
We are making good podcasts, and it's just going to get better. Today we're going to talk about Larry Hoover, and it's going to be a great discussion. I'm lucky enough to have Graham on the episode because he may or may not have heard of Larry Hoover before. Cannot confirm or deny that, but I'm going to read the intro off of Wikipedia for Larry Hoover, and then we're going to have a nice discussion of it. Yeah.
Maybe easier on your phone.
Yeah. Let's see.
Because this entire season of your podcast, we've been exploring the inmates at Colorado ADMAX. This incredibly maximum security jail is home to.
It's so many people, man.
It's like terrorists and proper, treasonous people, but then it's also kind of a place where they put political prisoners.
Yeah.
And I won't say that Larry Hoover's crimes are somehow like absolve him of responsibility, but in some respects, if you look at this country as you would another, there are people who are in this prison who are technically political prisoners.
That's true. And it is a wide array of prisoners at the ADX, the ADMAX Colorado, and that's why I decided to do it for a season. And we've already talked about some very interesting people, and we have some great episodes coming up. And Larry Hoover is definitely high on that list.
Yeah. Now, when you're looking at the screen from here, do you need it a little bigger, or is that okay?
No, this is fine. I'm just going to read that first one. It says Larry Hoover, born in 1950, Jackson, Mississippi, is an American organization leader and founder of the Chicago street gang called the Gangster Disciples. Hoover is currently serving 6 life sentences at the ADX Florence Supermax Prison in Florence, Colorado. His sentences include a 150 to 200 year sentence for a 1973 murder, and in 1997, after a 17-year investigation of conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, and running a continuing criminal enterprise for leading the gang from state prison, he received a life sentence. On October 11th, 2018, during a luncheon with President Donald Trump, rapper Kanye West pled for clemency for Hoover. And Kanye West is also from Chicago.
Yes.
And who else is from Chicago? Graham is. So
I've
never heard of Larry
Never heard
Hoover.
of
yeah.
Chicago or Larry Hoover. I don't know why we're doing this episode or why I would be in any way centered on this investigation. But yeah, no, Larry Hoover's impact on the city of Chicago is undeniable.
Right.
Even when you get up into the suburbs where I grew up, and it becomes much more concentrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
His impact and that impact on Chicago is also echoed through the entire country. Mm-hmm. Because there are even sets of gangster disciples who necessarily were not set up by the GDs, but became GDs because of the marketing value of that moniker.
Do you think that, do you agree with Kanye West when he said that he should get clemency?
I'm not sure about clemency, but we're just going to dive right into this.
Yeah.
What's going on in Chicago in the last few years is that I guess it's been since 2006, 2007. The murder rate has been climbing at an exponential rate.
Yeah.
During that same time in the early, what do you call them? The noughties, whatever, in the zeros of the 2000s.
Yeah.
The FBI did a major sweep through.
Okay, I remember hearing about that. Yeah.
And Larry Hoover wasn't hung up in this. This is all very recent, but it speaks to the problems in Chicago. They did a big sweep, and they removed all of the leadership from all of the major gangs, which had previously kept a lid on a lot of violence.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like there wasn't violence. It's not like things were super awesome, but things were contained.
Right.
They removed this leadership, and that devolved into lots of sets and cliques loosely affiliated with the gangs under which they used to be controlled, and they were at war with each other internally. And I'm not saying that's not how it had been since time immemorial as far as gangs in Chicago are concerned, but that is what has caused the recent surges in violence. The 700, 600 murder a year rates in Chicago are related directly to these leaders being taken out of power, right? And so the leaders who were recently taken out of power are multiple generational descendants as far as the gangs are concerned,
right,
who are in control. I think what Kanye West was talking about, though, is something I've spoken to other people from Chicago about, is that the level of gang violence that's occurring in Chicago now, you almost need to release these messianic figures.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're generations deep into people who don't know anyone who ever actually met Larry Hoover.
Yeah.
Nobody ever actually met Jeff Fort. You know, like these rival gang factions are headed by these almost religious figures.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I agree, but I'm definitely not saying that I disagree that peace in Chicago could be forged by somehow consolidating this power, because policing it on the street doesn't work.
No.
And then every 10 years the FBI comes in and gets some popcorn headlines because they arrest some mid-tier guys.
Yeah. It seems like it is a cycle, a vicious cycle. And this is, it reminds me of how they do the cartel leaders and everything, where they do a lot for the community and they actually give back to the community a lot. And I read something that even Larry Hoover, and then he did a lot of things for the community, and then he actually he changed the termination of Gangster Disciples to
Growth and Development.
Growth and Development, yeah. But
There are people who would argue, though, that the transition for, and it does coincide with his like legal troubles, like when he was about to get out,
right?
And they were bringing these new charges on him. But although the blueprint Larry Hoover laid out is in some ways kind of brilliant, because he took the, like, I'm not really sure how many specifics I can mention, but like he basically took the lit, which is like, if you're in Chicago and you're in a gang, you're lit. Like you have this like literature, and it's this body of knowledge that you're supposed to carry with you at all times, so that like if you were to encounter someone who is claiming to be the same thing you are, you guys have this common knowledge.
Okay.
Right? And it's supposed to govern the way you behave.
Okay.
So Larry Hoover took like one set of common knowledge and he flipped it around and he made it like community centered. Now there's people who argue that he did that because he was facing legal troubles. There's some people, myself included, who think that he realized that like he had overstepped to a certain level and that what he needs to, because he's going away, he's going to ADMAX, he's not coming back.
Right.
Years before that, though, in the run-up to protecting the PR for the GDs, he flipped it, and he was like, this is a community organization.
Yeah.
This is about, personal accountability.
Yeah.
Brothers of the
And,
struggle.
and everything that you just described is good, and it's something that even if he did it just because of his legal troubles, I mean, if you're giving back to your community and you're doing these things, and you're a lot of times from a black standpoint, we always like to say, well, you out here selling drugs and making all this money, give it back to your community. Okay, well, this is it. Yeah, like this is a prime example of that. So I like from what I understand, like he did that, and I agree with that. But because he's not here anymore, he's in ADMAX. It doesn't have to be in Chicago. It can be in Baltimore or LA or wherever.
Alabama.
Yeah, or anywhere. Somebody needs to take what he started and build upon that, because if it gets to a point to where we have to stop pointing the finger at everybody else and start saying that, hey, if we want to do this, we need to figure out how to do it ourselves.
Well, yeah, and you can look at anyone. It doesn't even have to be Larry Hoover.
Like,
You look at a lot of these, like the leaders of the super gangs that came up in the 90s. I mean, obviously they were just filling a void.
Yeah, they were actually. Yeah,
and they're essentially filling a void in like the family structure and the the value system of these certain areas, these certain neighborhoods, kind of giving pride back to people and being like, this is my neighborhood. Yeah. Problem is, in my opinion, is that these neighborhoods all border other neighborhoods where you guys all look alike. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not you guys. I'm speaking.
Oh yeah.
Omnisciently. But I'm saying where like you live in this world where like everybody looks like you, but now your pride is like aligned with like where the streets are. Yeah. You know what I mean? And shit gets messy, but then again, it's like in the early days of gangbanging in Chicago, it's kind of reminiscent of like English soccer hooligans. Like they would make a showing like, oh, we're all gonna be here, and then they were all there, and then there were more of these guys and these guys, so they chased them off. Maybe like a few people got in a fight, and then that was it. Right. You don't really like until the early 90s. Man, there's so much to this. Listen, so like these murder rates we talk about in Chicago in recent years, where it's like 600, 700, 800 people a year get murdered. Like in the early 90s in Chicago, it was like South Central. We're talking about like 1,100, 1,200 murders a year. And in those days, Chicago wasn't the murder capital. Like Gary, Indiana was for a few years. Yeah, and then it mostly would be like L.A. Yeah. And then it's crazy because we're talking about like per capita murders. Like, Chicago would occasionally bump up against 1,500, 2,000, like, which is wild. And this is crazy. In the early 90s, and this is obviously when nobody gave a shit, right? Except for the federal government, and except for like these other entities. So you get into these eras in the 2000s where you see the number like not anywhere close to that, but starts bumping up against it, and you're like, wow, this behavior is out of control. What did we do? Well, you removed the leadership. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, and that's
Yeah.
part of what happened with Larry Hoover is that,
Yeah.
like, in his day when he was removed from power, you know, the void that was filled with excess and violence and easy. And then also these are organized criminal organizations. You know, Larry Hoover didn't do anything that Lucky Luciano didn't do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, there's a lot of parallels between these gangs and then the mafia and then, you know, even the Mexican cartels. I mean, there's a lot of things that are similarities.
Yeah.
And that's what I was touching on earlier is that, okay, you know what they do, but at the same time, they built that community center and they're cleaning up the streets and they will have youth groups and tell them like, look, I might be a bad guy, quote unquote, but you don't have to do this.
Right.
We're going to give you an opportunity to not do this.
Right. And what did the federal government do until then?
Yeah. Yeah.
Drop crack off in those neighborhoods.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, and that's a given too. See, that's not like some conspiracy theory shit.
no,
Like, that's been proven time and time again.
Oh, yes.
That in the 90s, the CIA was directly involved.
Yeah.
It like that's where dope, like the big dope boy, like
Yeah.
the E40 character
Oh,
in
yeah.
the six car mansion.
Oh, yeah.
all of that started because someone from the CIA was like, "Here's $1 million worth of cocaine. You're the guy now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the guy.
You're
now."
the head.
You know,
And that's and a lot of people don't want to talk about that. They don't want to discuss that or they don't even know.
Yeah.
And the history of the United States government and how the different departments of it interacted with the citizens of
Yeah.
the United States
Yeah.
is something that we can talk about for many episodes.
Well, you
and
know,
we
it's-
already have.
You know what's funny though? Not funny in any way. Is what's really funny is that we talk about these things and we talk about how in the early '90s, in the 1990s, like the U.S. government was like dumping tons of cocaine.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
teaching people how to make crack.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're in 2019 when black people are like, this doesn't feel like the scales are too even. They're like, you need to get over that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that was 10 minutes ago.
Right, right, yeah, it's weird, man. And
Until
then,
the next, I'm always like, dude, that was 10 minutes ago. Give us 30 minutes.
yeah, yeah, and that's how it is. And like you said, they dumped off all this crack and everything, and they inducted this into the ghetto and then the major black areas, the urban areas. What did you expect these guys to do?
Right.
Like you can't really
No.
do all that, and then you have people like Larry Hoover and all these big drug lords who took the reins over these
Yeah,
gangs.
of course.
What did you expect to happen? You punished him for doing
Bro.
something that he didn't have a choice in doing. Like, you know,
listen.
of course, Larry Hoover could have went to college and did all this, but I mean,
Instead, he ran
had an opportunity to do.
corporation.
Yeah, is he any different than a Fortune 500 CEO?
He is because he didn't pay taxes.
Exactly. See, and we talked about this every
Yep.
time we bring up
That's
prostitution
why.
and all this shit. Is if you don't pay back the United States government, the IRS, they will come after you.
Right.
And most of those charges are because of him not paying taxes.
I
mean,
already
that's
know
it.
the answer to this, but I'm gonna look it up.
Okay.
But yeah, there was when Larry Hoover went on trial again.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. There was like proof basically that like the GDs would have been a Fortune 500 company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the gang had an organizational structure similar to that of a Fortune 500 company. That was something that FBI discovered.
Yeah.
And you know why they were pissed off?
What's that?
Because they didn't do it.
See.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't paying taxes.
Right,
And
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I'm not excusing this. And like, they took a lot of liberties.
Uh-huh.
But all of these super gangs, we could do a 6-hour podcast if you want, where I can walk you through all of the super gangs in this country and where they came from. And what they came from was people who are smart.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like the argument is always for capitalism is that it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it is.
That like, and I agree.
Yeah.
In many
yeah. No,
respects.
I 100% agree with that.
I do think it needs to be regulated in some respects, but that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
The level at which we feel like it should be regulated, but without oppression, capitalism is a given. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It will manifest itself.
Yeah.
I don't not trying to excuse it, but like you look at this like massively underrepresented population and you're like, hey, this population in which you live is a $1 billion a year industry.
Yeah.
Someone is going to step up and take control of it.
Of course.
And the person who steps up and steps up and steps up is going to be markedly more smarter than everyone else.
Yeah.
And by that logic, probably a lot smarter than anyone's going to come at him.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
Lawyers, police, the
Right,
federal government.
right.
Like, you can come up with, you know, ways to circumvent those systems.
And those people will have a way to understand where you could pay off the cops. We've seen this plenty of times.
Oh,
There was a
yeah.
documentary about how the cops in a precinct and like, I think Brooklyn, they were paid off, and they were on the payroll of the drug dealers and everything.
That was the
and
late
they protected
90s.
them.
It was the late 90s.
Dude, the
they
90s
arrested
were
all
like,
those cops in Chicago
Yeah,
who were
yeah.
connected to like
dude, the 90s were
hits.
like the wild, wild west of
Yeah.
the new era Wild
It
Wild
was
West,
a
so to
weird
speak.
like melting down of anonymity and then
Yeah.
like the birth of no secrecy.
yeah.
And like those times are nuts.
And then they always say that even when they have these hearings and these trials and everything, it's like, look, I'm a cop in Brooklyn or in Chicago, and I'm not getting paid anything. I have a wife. I have a kid with another kid on the way. These guys weren't necessarily paying me to break the law, but they were giving me extra money to look out for them and let them
Yeah.
know that when a raid was coming, or who was after them, or who was going to come after
Right,
them.
and who does that fall on?
Okay, yeah, technically that's against the rules, but at the same time,
It's an
if
economy.
you're paying, it's economy. And what you went back to is that capitalism will always manifest
It'll
itself.
just do its thing.
And it's like it's
That's
it's
the
weird,
danger
you know?
of the free market. That's why
Yeah.
the free market idea is silly, because
Yeah.
you're like, well, of course, because nuclear power plants would just cool the nuclear plants with the water from the ocean. And
Right,
just run
yeah.
in and run out,
Yeah.
run in and run out until the seas were just green. You
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
they would just do that. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, because if you allow a free market, also, you know, fucking, you're like, oh, we have this commodity drugs. It's super bad, but people seem to really love them.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
someone's going to be the CEO of this operation.
Right,
Someone will
right.
step up and fill that role.
Yeah, yeah. Because if there's an open chair, somebody's gonna sit in it. That's always the rule. And you come through and you get guys like Larry Hoover and all of these big name these leaders. You take them away, and what did you expect was gonna happen?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like
See, and that's what I'm saying too.
It's weird.
You saw when they in their mid 2000s, you saw like sort of the culmination of a relaxation in tensions from the mid 90s when all of these guys went away forever. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a lot of these guys, they locked them up in the 80s, they
Yeah.
locked them up in
Yeah.
the early 90s, and it was like flimsy RICO shit. But
Yeah,
then they
right.
figured
Yeah.
out how to tie it all together.
Right.
And then they were like, oh no, you go away for 600 life sentences in
Yeah.
the box that
on
we've
some
described.
bullshit. Like,
at
give me just
ADMAX.
one life sentence. Like,
Yeah, no, you go away forever and forever, forever.
Right.
No contact to the outside world.
Yeah.
Which also is kind of fucked up, because then your legacy is whatever the fuck is going on out there, and you
Yeah.
no longer control it. So I'm sure
Yeah.
the federal government enjoys that.
Of course.
Like
Yeah.
teaking these guys and being like,
Yeah.
yeah, your followers are out here acting crazy. It's all your
Yeah,
fault.
yeah. Look
And
what
we're
you did. Look at what you did.
And we're just letting them until they get so bad we can put them in here with you.
Of course.
You know.
No, that's how they do.
It's because it just feeds itself.
Yeah,
It's
that's
all
how
the
that's,
same thing.
and that's how the federal government does. They don't
It's
get you
like
as soon
the
as they
yeah.
they learn about you. They wait,
Yeah.
and then
It's
it
like
doesn't
the
matter.
terrorism
It doesn't
thing.
matter whether you're selling drugs, whether you're stealing from Walmart,
Yep.
whether it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
You're
matter.
scamming. They wait till you get to a certain point,
And then they get you.
That's when they get you.
Yeah.
Because when the feds get you, when the feds put the cuffs on you, they got you.
Yeah.
It very rarely will somebody beat a federal case, especially when it deals with RICO or something like that, or terrorism. Now, oh my God, you're
You know
you're
what's
done.
funny though is that the fucking Hell's Angels almost escaped unscathed.
Right? Yeah.
And that
yeah.
guy, you know why though? Because bikers are fucking. Dude.
Yeah.
Come on. There's like, what are there? 800,000.
Yeah.
Fucking
No,
Hell's Angels.
yeah.
And what are like 5 of them about it? Like that's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
That's a very different thing. It's a
It
much
is.
harder thing to nail down.
It is.
Which
It
is funny too, because they wear shirts with their names on the back of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like when they roll through when they roll through a BD neighborhood in Chicago and they lock everyone up, people aren't wearing shirts like, hello, my name is Black Disciple.
Yeah, bikers do that shit with the patches on the back and everything. That was always weird to me because I'm like, if y'all are really doing this shit like they say you doing.
I'm a guy who, we're always on this podcast talking about how, like, you know, we all are taking it face value, but also that makes me be like, what is it, because they're white dudes?
Yeah, right.
Like, is that what this is?
Yeah.
They're like white dudes in leather vests, and they're like, oh, we're here carry around this hammer, so we're gonna bash somebody's fucking head in.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the police are like, well, whatever. It takes other assholes on bikes.
Yeah.
And the other assholes on bikes have to get together.
Yeah.
And then they just smear themselves all over the highway.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that better for all?
No, they did that shit in
Isn't
at a
it
place in Texas with the
quieter
two
now?
with like the Hell's Angels and
Laughlin, that
another.
was
Yeah.
New Mexico.
Yeah, New
Or,
Mexico.
and
Oklahoma, right?
Where's Las Vegas?
No, Nevada.
Laughlin,
Yeah.
Nevada.
Yeah, but they had that fight in the parking lot, and then
Yeah.
they ended up dropping all the charges on that shit too, because it's
See,
like
that's a weird thing though, because
Yeah.
that's seen as like the culmination of the war between
right.
the Hells Angels and the Mongols.
Yeah.
3 people got bruises.
Yeah, and it was like a big brawl, and then they had like guns
like
and
2
sacks of
people
flour.
died.
Yeah,
And
it wasn't
like
that. It wasn't that.
accidentally someone got shot.
Yeah,
That's not. Can't go
I
for it.
don't know. It's a different. Yeah, that's a different story.
Listen, this is a good episode of the podcast though, because it is a good time to talk about how silly all of that shit is.
It is. It is.
know?
It is. And this is exactly why the government doesn't want to legalize all this shit.
Right.
When they could legalize it and tax it and regulate it, but they don't want
There's more
to
money
because
to be made taking people off the street and putting them in cages.
Exactly. The government is always going to find a way to have somebody be the enemy. If they legalize drugs and they
This shit
regulate and
bothers me
tax
because
it,
when I
they
talk
would
to
go for
people-
terrorism.
See, when I talk to people, they're always like, when I talk about these things, sometimes people think I'm on my soapbox. And I'm like, no.
No.
Of all the problems in our country, these are the simplest ones.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
please pay attention to what's going on here.
Yeah.
Like, the federal government is funding black markets from which they pull headlines, money,
Yes.
individuals.
It's been that way
they get
for
to like
years.
Yeah,
Nobody
that's what
wants
they
to.
do.
Nobody wants to believe this.
They create this pool of accessibility, and they're like, "Oh, Nicaragua, you don't like what's going on there? Oh, we've been there for years, selling them cocaine.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's point at this politician.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy's been taking our cocaine forever.
Yeah, and that's exactly
And
how. It's been that way for years.
Yeah, it's been like that forever.
Yeah.
Absolute madness.
Yeah.
And that's what that's where I was kind of hoping this conversation about Larry Hoover would go, is just to like, look, Larry Hoover's not a fucking saint. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
To some people he is.
Yeah.
But like Larry Hoover is not like admonished from his responsibility for what he created.
Right.
But also we have to recognize that Larry Hoover exists because a spot for Larry Hoover came open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah. It
As
is.
when someone becomes the CEO of a company.
Yeah.
Or when like Bill Gates, throws that other nerd out of the garage.
Right.
And he's like, we're at the ground floor here. And
Yeah,
someone
like,
needs
no,
to be
I'm in the head
charge
now,
here.
and this is it. Yeah. And that's
That's the same level of intelligence.
never-
It's just you're just playing with different cards.
Yeah.
And it's super disingenuous for the government to be like, oh, well, I know these cards look different, but they play the same as these. They fucking clearly don't.
They don't. No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a lot of things that people want to ignore and go. Well, this is why Pod Caviar exists, because we dive into these issues and these topics that people are afraid to talk about.
Agreed.
And there's a lot of truth in all of this. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about Larry Hoover or we're talking about the Montauk Project. The government has its hands in a lot of these things, and even if they have minimal contact or they just started it, still there's a connection there.
Or even
There's a
if-
connection, and
even if we try to minimize the impact of like one of these things that happens, it's all paints a broader picture.
right,
You know what I mean? It all all of it paints a broader picture of a
Mm-hmm.
world that is created by necessity, a reality that necessity creates.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I need, okay, well, there's all these people, they need this. And all these people need this. And then, oh, fuck, somebody needs somebody to be here to disseminate all this to these people. And then that is. And people are like, oh, that's a grand story of the building of Western civilization. And I'm like, no, it happens in microcosms. It happens in tiny situations.
Yeah.
It happens in a neighborhood where people are like, hey, we all need this resource to get this. So let's all fucking start acting like this, to act like this, to act like this, to act like this, to act like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's all start communicating this way. And
It's all
making these
dominoes.
microtransactions.
Once you tap that first domino, they're going to fall, and then it's going to keep falling until you stop the direction.
Because we all live on the same planet. Like, you understand, like, everything on this planet came from this planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gang territory doesn't come down from outer space into your your real myopic, like, I have to survive world.
Right.
Gang territory doesn't fall down from outer space and build up like blocks. And you're like, oh, well, we'll just go over there.
Yeah. Nah.
You know?
Nah.
No,
It comes from
right
the planet.
number of people.
And it comes
depending
from
on your
all necessity.
survival. Yeah.
Who has it, who doesn't have it, and then if somebody has it and you don't have it, are you going to pay the price that they said, or are you going to just take it from them? And that's where the whole conflict comes up. And I'm going to tell you right
Sometimes
now,
the price is entrenched.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm going to tell you right now, it happens on Earth. Probably happens on other planets too that we don't even know about, because it is in everybody's natural, in their soul, that if somebody has something, they keep it away from people who don't have it. Sometimes they share, more than likely they don't, and that's just how it is. So
You know who comes and gets you.
Yeah. You got a picture of fucking the greatest bounty hunter ever on the screen. Boba Fett, yeah. Hell yeah. He's my favorite character from Star Wars.
And you know what's weird is they didn't ever figure out what they were going to do with him.
No.
Because, when the special edition came out, I remember reading a review in a physical newspaper. When the Return of the Jedi special edition came out, there was like a section where it was like, and someone makes a reappearance, hint, burp. And I was like, oh, well, the pit of Sarlacc burps.
Yeah.
When Boba Fett is eaten.
Right.
What happened? And you don't ever see him again.
No. It's weird.
I actually read a book when I was in middle school that said that Boba Fett was the only person to escape from the pit of Sarlacc.
I believe it.
Because apparently the deal where it like devours you for 1,000 years is that it like feeds you and like it nourishes you and heals you as it eats you, and it can do that for 1,000 years. And apparently you like mentally interfaced with it and like ran a con on the fucking eon aged monster in the pit of Sarlacc, and was able to get released, and then like blew his way through the surface. But that took like years to do, apparently.
Hey, fuck it.
And it's the only one of those weird stories I read about Star Wars when I was in middle school that I remembered, and I was always like, that would be dope.
Yeah, no, it would be, and they should have made a movie about that.
Because they really went in depth. Yeah,
I mean, they make a movie about everything else, but they're not gonna make a movie about Boba Fett.
That's
like
sick.
And I liked the Han Solo movie; that was great. But I really would have been excited for a Boba Fett movie.
Yeah, and they really fucking half-assed it there too.
They did.
It
was
like,
really long.
Here's
like
who Boba Fett is.
Yeah,
I was like, that was all I wanted from that episode.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out how the Kessel Run was won in a measure of time instead of distance,
right?
Or a measure of distance instead of time.
Yeah,
and they didn't really explain
that.
No,
they
either.
didn't. No,
but
then
I was
said
like, where did Boba Fett come from? And they weren't like, here it is. They were like,
they were just like, here he is.
Foggy nonsense.
There he is. Yeah. It's a mysterious past, and you're like, I don't know. Fuck that.
All these fucking superhero movies and Star Trek movies, you can't give me one about Boba Fett.
Right.
You have all.
Right.
You have all the license.
All of it,
bro. That's
all of it. Just make it.
They only say his name 3 times in the whole series of movies, and that's when Han Solo's like, Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Boba Fett. And when I was a kid, I didn't know what he was saying. Because I'd never heard that guy's name before.
Right. It's weird, right? They never text on him because, and I always paid attention to Boba Fett because I was like, damn, that's kind of cool. And I was like, well, where's he going? I understand all this rest of this shit, but how does he tie into this?
But he did tie in. He was in.
He was always there.
He was always kind of there in the background.
Right. And I'm like, why would y'all do this? They put fucking E.T. in Star Wars before they expanded on Boba Fett's history, and I don't know. This is why I'm a Star Trek fan. This is exactly why I'm a Star Trek fan. I never understood.
Because Star Wars doesn't ever dig in.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Star
Trek
does.
It always does. Whether it's on a show, a movie, or a book, they always do. And Star Wars has books too, which is great.
400 episode arc of the TV show. It doesn't matter.
Right.
No, Star Trek's better.
Nah, yeah. Star Trek is definitely better.
Star Wars is easier.
Yeah.
Star Wars is visually it's and especially if you go from the first 3 to the new ones that they're making now. I'm like, wow, I really appreciate how they stuck with the aesthetic. Because the new Star Trek movies can fuck themselves. And they're good. I know they're good, but I can't fuck that timeline. I can't. It doesn't happen.
I don't like the third. I don't like the third one. I don't like the third one, but the first 2 were great. People hated the Into Darkness because they're like, that's not
like
on.
The first one.
I like the first 2.
I like the first one.
I like the
fuck out of here. You pop Spock out, and I'm like, oh, God, save us. And he's like, this is a different timeline. I'm like, you fucking bitch. Fuck.
I remember when the first one came out. I
here.
remember when the first one came out. I had a bootleg. That was one of the last bootlegs I ever bought, and I brought it into work. And then we were watching it and shit. And then we saw it was like we thought it was like a time where we could take a break, go to the bathroom, take a smoke or whatever. And I was out there bullshitting. And then my homeboy came out there and he was like, yeah, you shouldn't have took a break because Spock is there. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, Spock? I was like, no, well, they have Spock. And he was like, no, Spock.
No,
and I'm
Spock,
like,
Spock.
oh, shit.
Yeah. And they fucked it.
Yeah.
Actually, they did the perfect thing. And I like.
They didn't fuck it. They went. They connected it, but I don't think they fucked it though.
If I was a billionaire and I lived in a big ass house and I made movies and I was like, oh, they're giving me Star Trek. All right, well, I'm gonna do this, and this, and then here's what I got installed.
Yeah.
At the end of this movie, you tell them this is some whole other shit.
Yeah.
And good luck.
But even in Into Darkness, Spock didn't interfere with the storyline. He just said that Khan is not somebody you need to take lightly. And that he will cause a lot of pain, which he did.
Oh wait, they went back to the cave and saw old Spock again?
Yeah, in the second. You never saw Into Darkness?
No.
Oh my god.
Fuck Into Darkness.
Oh, you need to watch that shit.
For real?
Yeah.
And
yeah, dude. Yeah.
I don't like
it's not going to text the original, but
why didn't Commander Pike end up in that shitty wheelchair with the two
with the
lights?
fucking with the light? Oh, I was waiting on that shit. I was like, how
do you explain all this futuristic technology?
Right.
How do you explain that he ended up in a wheelchair with 2 lights? Bro, we live in a time where fucking Stephen Hawking was telling us about the nature of the universe by wiggling his wrists.
Yeah.
And this guy is living 400 years from now in a wheelchair with a red and a yellow light.
I think it's some boop, and no. If we were talking about realistic shit, Starfleet would be a part of the government, and we know the government is not going to spend money on anything that's going to give you some Stephen Hawking type shit. So they were probably like, we got this, and you'll still be able to communicate, but I don't know, man. You got your joystick and you got 3 lights, and then that's it.
But he only had that though.
What is it? South Park did that shit where they fucking put a teacher on in one of that shit, and they tied it to it, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, because if you see that in real life, you're like, what the fuck is this shit? What are you talking about? Hey, how you doing, Captain Pike? Is everything all right? And it's like, boop, and you're like, what is that? What is one beep? That's a high tone.
Why won't they show me the original? Where is it? The green and the red. You can't find it.
Oh, fuck. Did they take it all
off?
off?
Fuck. Here's your best performance in the history of fucking Star Trek.
Oh, God damn it. No.
He's the best. He's the best captain of all time.
That's how he got out of it.
However, have a choice.
Yeah, that's when he was being tortured.
You can live out your life in misery, held here, subject to my whims.
See,
or you can live in comfort with good food and warm clothing.
Bro, this is where Star Trek wins. Because there's people who hear this and they go, that's the accent of a Cardassian.
Yeah.
And they understand that he's torturing Jean-Luc Picard right now, and they understand the entire governmental interactions between the Federation and all of these other entities. You know what I mean? That manifest themselves in these tiny events. Star Wars was always like the entirety of the universe is at the whim of these few people.
And before you press play, to tie this into what we said before, when Captain Picard was taken prisoner by the Kardashians or even the Borg, he was gone from the Enterprise, and there were changes that happened that you saw, and it was terrible changes. It was just the whole environment of the Enterprise was different because he wasn't there. So that's how important he was. Yeah. So okay, you can look at Starfleet and say they did a bunch of fucked up shit, and we take away the leader of that, and it gets even worse.
Yeah, and Starfleet is dark.
Yeah,
you get into Star Trek, and you get into like the machinations of the Federation in the universe they live in. It's like, wow, well, why do you need to influence these galaxies over here?
No, the Starfleet and the Empire have a lot of
I've always felt like Star Trek was a bit of a commentary on America, but this is also just like one of the greatest scenes in the history of acting.
Allowed to pursue your studies of philosophy and history. I would enjoy debating with you. You have a keen mind. It's up to you.
And these are great
a life
actors.
of ease, of reflection,
one in
and
makeup,
intellectual
one
challenge.
not. But like probably these two motherfuckers have met on the stages of London, like at the London, at the fucking whatever that theater is called where they do Shakespeare still.
Right.
These two have been on that stage together.
Yeah.
And
you
they
can
put
tell.
weird alien makeup on this guy, and they told Patrick Stewart, like, look, here's your motivation, and you got an acting performance that you didn't deserve on a primetime network TV show.
Or this.
What must I do?
Nothing, really. Tell me how many lights you see. How many? How many lights? This is your last chance. The guards are coming. Don't be a stubborn fool. How many?
You told me he would be ready to go.
We had some unfinished business.
Get him cleaned up. A ship is waiting to take him back to the Enterprise. Captain Picard. If you'll go with the guards, they'll take care of you.
How many lights are there?
Right. How many fucking lights? Say it.
There you fuck yeah! 4 fucking lights! 4 lights! Walk off! Fuck yeah!
Fuck you.
Get the fuck off me! Hell yeah!
Why the fuck why were there other Star Treks?
Yeah.
Why is there a discussion?
It shouldn't be.
I don't even know where this started.
I know.
But the end of this discussion, Larry Hoover, ADMAX, whatever, Captain Picard is the superior captain.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can take some parallels between the two is that, you know, when you're put into a leadership position, every choice that you make may not necessarily be into what people think that you should do, but you're in that position and you do what you need to do, whether it's right or wrong. And that is the great trait, characteristic of a good leader. And that's what it is.
Yeah, I think this is definitely 100%, I can say with all confidence, this is the only episode of a podcast that ever dared to prove that Larry Hoover existed by proving that Captain Picard was the greatest captain.
We somehow managed to fuse those two together, and we made it coherent. And you're welcome. If you hear this, you're welcome. And this is why we are so hard on subscribing to these podcasts because you have to hear this shit.
I can't.
This
keep
is
track of
genius.
shit.
This
I
is
can't keep
genius.
track of
This is
shit.
genius. This is genius. If Picasso saw this shit in painting form, he would be like, "Oh fuck!
How many
What the fuck?"
stories would he need to know?
Right.
How many stories would he need to know to paint this?
Right. This is crazy. And this is why we have Pod Caviar. This is why we have the 1 Gram Army. And this is why
These things have to be explored.
every Sunday we come in here and we do this because, hell,
Next weekend, I'm just doing Star Trek shit.
yeah.
We're just gonna solve Star Trek next week
We can do
on
that.
my podcast.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
We're gonna solve Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The problems with the universe, however all that works.
Yeah.
We're gonna really go down.
We could do
Because
that.
I don't. Why does it feel the same in my head? Why do I understand the machinations of all of these super gangs that actually happened in real life?
Yeah.
Why does it feel the same in my head
Yeah.
as it does when I'm like, well, you know, the Cardassians,
Yeah.
they enslaved the
There's a lot of
Bajorans,
parallels.
and then you
There's
know the
a lot of
Bajorans, you know,
parallels.
because that Bajoran story is complicated. Because you're like, oh, are they ready to enter into the Federation? We don't know because you know to survive they were basically terrorists,
Yeah.
against these Cardassians
Yeah.
who are our enemy, but kind of we don't want
Right.
to fight them because they have shit that looks like ours.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
It is.
The Federation's a wreck.
It is.
So maybe we'll solve it next
Yeah.
time.
How much? Where are we at on time?
50.
50. All right. Yeah. Let's wrap this up before.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. This was
Nah,
a great
it's fine.
day of
Yeah.
podcasting, though.
Yeah. I gotta definitely.
This was a great day of podcasting.
Yeah, it was. It was. We did a lot of great
So
shit.
many
2
great
great
podcasts.
episodes.
Yeah.
And
I had-
we are definitely in our stride. And this is an amazing and it's just gonna get better from here.
I know.
I mean, holy shit.
It can't get any worse.
No, it can't get any worse. No. We started at rock bottom, so now, we've been
No, we're
gracefully
in the-
building this up.
We're in
and
the
it can't get any
fucking groove
worse,
now,
so.
folks.
So yeah, make sure you subscribe to the 1 Gram Army. Make sure you subscribe to Pod Caviar. Make sure you shop at Shirt Caviar, and in your spare time, check out Game Caviar. All of this is on YouTube, not Sound. Are you on SoundCloud? No, fuck
I don't have time
SoundCloud. But
for
we are on
SoundCloud.
iTunes and Google Play and all
that
this shit.
But fuck
So
SoundCloud.
yeah, definitely
So
fuck SoundCloud.
Close your podcast out.
Yeah.
Fuck SoundCloud. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. That's my last message.
That's Graham. I'm Tony. Thank you for listening, and we are out.